Aloha viewers, and welcome back to Chamber Music Matters, the video series created by your very own Chamber Music Hawaii, where we dig deeper into what music can do for us as individuals in our day-to-day lives, as well as in the various communities that we all belong to. So far, we've gotten to discuss different music-related topics on things such as courage and encouragement with violinist Helen Liu, unity and community with oboist Scott Janish, and today's topic will be covering passion and compassion through music with one of the most intriguing musicians I've ever had the pleasure to meet, but I will introduce that musician later. Dive into this topic a little bit more. As a musician or as an artist of any kind, you have to have passion, something that drives you to pick up that instrument, sit in a small room for 2 to 6 hours every day. Every day. We have to sacrifice so much time with loved ones, and we even sacrifice mealtime because we're so passionate and dedicated to our art form, music. And that passion to learn how to better express ourselves through a piece of metal or wood, our instruments, leads us to new self-discoveries, as it's incredibly challenging but also rewarding to let yourself be vulnerable enough to display your passion in front of a large crowd. And with that passion often comes compassion for those around us, as we understand what it is to work so hard at something and to try and connect with our other colleagues around us and our audiences. My guest today enjoys dressing like Gandalf. He also has one of the longest beards I've ever seen and has also recorded an album singing Johnny Cash covers. He also has a band tributed to the music of Johnny Cash called Cashback here in Hawaii. Super fun guy. So I'm so excited to introduce tubist extraordinaire, TJ Reiser. He plays with the Honolulu Brass and Chamber Music Hawaii. Hi TJ, welcome.
Hey there, Jamie. Good to see you.
So what was that piece that you played for us, and why did you choose that one for today's video?
That was the Hungarian March from Hector Berlioz's opera about Faust. I chose that one because it was an excuse for me to bring out my very tiny tuba, because that piece was written for an even smaller instrument that preceded the tuba, known as the ophicleide. I love pulling out this small tuba when I'm playing solo and chamber music stuff. This is actually a quite rare 100-year-old British F-tuba made by Boozy and Company. And it was the sound of the British tuba that was in the ears of Elgar or Vaughan Williams through the first half of the 20th century. And it's actually the model of instrument that the Vaughan Williams tuba concerto was written for. And that is our most famous solo in the tuba player's repertoire. Wanted to show you my tiny little Boozy F tuba.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, TJ, and where your passion for tuba came from?
Even among tuba players, I'm a bit of an odd duck in that I wanted to play the tuba from the very beginning. They asked me what I wanted to play in band class, and that was #1 on my list. And I've never been able to put my finger on it exactly, but I loved the claymation animated show Tubby the Tuba when I was a kid. And I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, where the Ohio State University marching band is a big deal, and the tuba players doubly so because they got to dot the I in the script Ohio in the halftime shows at the Ohio State football games. So being in a family where both my mom and my dad have degrees from Ohio State, uh, Ohio State football games were a big part of the culture, and dotting the I was pretty neat there at halftime. So I think that might have been part of what made me just think tuba was the way to go from the very beginning. The summer when I turned 13, we moved, and when I got to a new school, the very first period was band, and the tuba player they had had in the 7th grade year had quit, and I showed up the first day of first period, and I showed up as a tuba player, and everyone went, "Whoa, this is so great, we lost our tuba player and now we've got one." And almost from that moment on, it was kind of part of my identity, and I could sort of be in the community as, hey, that's the tuba player. So I think all those things added together to make me really value the tuba as an instrument, but then as part of what it was in my own life.
I love that the tuba became your identity. I think a lot of our viewers could say the same. A lot of people have a lot of amazing memories being in marching band or concert band or orchestra. Our instruments have given us a sense of purpose, of identity, and thank you for bringing that up, TJ, because I love that you are the Honolulu tuba guy. So our theme for today's video is passion and compassion. Can you kind of just describe what these two words mean to you and how they're connected?
Yeah, I guess my passion for the tuba almost came before I realized my passion for music and for expression. So, of course, to me, passion means you love something deeply. There's just this underlying feeling. But also, it's got a fire to it. It's something you have to act on. It's not just a static feeling, oh, I love this thing and that's the way it is. And honestly, playing the tuba and playing music in general is not the easiest way to make a living. And I really don't think you can get to that point without a passion where you're just burning that this is the one thing that you have to do. There are easier ways to make a living than trying to express yourself through a musical instrument. Compassion, if you take it all the way down to the Latin roots, I think means to suffer with. And that's part of it. To me, maybe the most effective songs in the world are the sad songs. But I like to think of it as more of an overarching type of word. Just basically to feel with. Even if you haven't personally experienced something, can you project yourself and understand the way somebody else feels? And so that's a really important thing as a musician, to wear all these different hats, almost to be an actor. Can you portray sadness? Can you portray anger? Can you portray love? And can you do it in such a way that it causes compassion in your audience? Are they feeling those things along with you?
Wow, TJ, that was really profound. And I love that you're so open with your experience as a musician. But it was so beautifully said, the way you described being able to portray all the different emotions, wearing all the different hats of anger, sadness, and portraying that to an audience and like even your colleagues on stage and sharing that emotion with them. It's so difficult to be that vulnerable, even in our day-to-day lives. I mean, being open with our loved ones about how we're feeling or what they did and how that made us feel. I mean, communication is key, and it's so hard to let that go, almost letting go of that fear of being judged. It's super difficult, but thank you for describing it the way you did. It was beautiful. I'm sure we're all wondering, me and the viewers, what is a tubist role in a brass quintet? And how does it compare to being a tubist in, say, the Hawaii Symphony or the Royal Hawaiian Bands?
My role in any ensemble, first and foremost, is to be a musician. So I want to be listening around to what everyone else is doing and reacting, and even looking around, especially in chamber music, and seeing what's going on with my colleagues. We want to work together to create something that's bigger than the sum of the parts. So I always want to think musician first, tuba player second. That being said, as the tuba player, I am the lowest voice in the brass wind family, so my role remains pretty similar through brass quintet, through band, and through the symphony orchestra. It's often just a question of quantity more than anything. You'll notice in the orchestra, because we have multiple families of instruments, I'm not the only bass voice, so sometimes the string basses will be playing, sometimes the low woodwinds will be playing, and then sometimes I will be playing that bass supportive role. And brass players in general in the orchestra, we come in for the big heroic moments, but there's a lot of time where we're sitting there counting, waiting, listening. And so endurance is not as much of an issue in the orchestra because we have a very specific role there. And in the brass quintet, of course, there's no one else to rely on, so we have to rely on each other in terms of endurance and just the strength of our chops. So because there's so many fewer other things going on, I do get to take a melodic role, a solo role more often in the brass quintet, and there's very little place to hide, very little chance to not play in the tuba player's role in the brass quintet. It's kind of a hybrid of that in the band, in that there are no 9 double bass players like I would have in the orchestra that could be covering that role. So I am those 9 double bass players in a band. So I play almost continuously in the band, but almost never in that solo role like I do in the brass quintet.
So as I kind of hinted at the beginning of this video, you have so much passion for different styles and genres and types of music. What advice would you give young musicians that want to, kind of explore all that music has to offer?
I absolutely do. The passion for music is somewhat separate from the passion for tuba, but the tuba is the medium through which I tend to do most of my music making now. But in high school, I was told that I could not join the jazz band as a tuba player. And my grandmother had given me a trombone that was in her attic that my uncle used to play. So I just went out and I bought the Yamaha student band method book for trombone and taught myself how to play trombone well enough to do some jazz there. And that turned out to be great for me. I played both tenor and bass trombone throughout high school and college and my years as a freelance musician. And sometimes trombone put more food on the table than the tuba did. And the same for bass guitar. I picked that up because I wanted to play some pop music, some country music, and some jazz. And I played in my college jazz band on bass guitar. And then I took that with me when I moved to Tennessee. And I started a country band where I was the singer and the bass player. We called it Cashback. And we put out an album, a tribute to the man in black himself, Johnny Cash. And then those things kind of piled back onto themselves later when I started playing sousaphone in a funk band. So the Po' Boys Brass Band, we put out 2 albums, and one of those albums actually contains the first original song I ever wrote called Flower Power, because we were based out of Rochester, New York, and that was known as the Flower City. So I absolutely have passions in music beyond the tuba and beyond classical music and beyond playing in an orchestra, as much as I love doing all of those things. I think for me personally, it meant that I developed a little bit more slowly than some of my colleagues did as orchestral players. I've known guys who were just burning to be orchestral players, and they were pretty darn competitive at auditions in their early 20s. And I think I maybe developed a little bit slower, but when I got to the point where I was competitive, I really feel like I was a bit more well-rounded as a musician and a person because I've had all of these other experiences beyond playing the Hungarian March and Ride of the Valkyries. I would encourage anyone who is studying music and who has interests beyond classical music, pursue them. You're only going to get better at your classical music by pursuing everything else in the world there is, because it makes you a more well-rounded human and it makes you a more well-rounded musician. Absolutely.
Being a well-rounded human and musician, that is very special, I think. There's not a lot of musicians that go outside the realm of classical music, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing. There's so much to learn from musicians like TJ that have taken a step outside of the classical music realm, and it's good for you, good for the soul, good for the heart. Thanks for saying that, TJ. Music is such a universal language, no matter where we're from. So how does music inspire compassion and provide a framework for the world that we live in today?
Yeah, that's a tough one. If you get on social media nowadays, everyone's fighting with everyone else and everyone's backed into their corner as far as they can go. But as we're all posting and flaming and fighting each other, we're probably all listening to music. And even some of my students and things, when I've asked them what music do they listen to, and they say, well, I don't listen to music. That's just not true. There's always something going on in the background. Oftentimes it's they actually love the music in their video games, or they love the music from the soundtracks to their favorite movies. So music is one of those baseline human things, and honestly, I believe it is one of the things that makes us human. It's one of the most basically human things, and that's played out historically in concentration camps, in some of the most poor situations humans have ever been in. They continue to make music. And maybe if we can all approach each other with that compassion of we're similar in this way, start from that point of commonality. We're all human, we all love music. Maybe we can find a few more points of commonality and find some ways forward together. I'm gonna keep making art, making music more loudly, more passionately, in the hopes that we all can figure this thing out, because we're all in it together one way or another.
Yeah, I love what you said, TJ. I was in a seminar recently where a speaker was speaking to, we may appear this one way or many ways on the outside, but on the inside, there's so many things that we have in common with someone else, like whether it be family or a hobby or military. There's so much to being a human than just one thing or another. We can always find commonalities with someone else. So I think that's very true, especially with music. Is there anything else you'd like to say or add for our viewers today, TJ?
In case anyone is interested, I added a few things that I've been passionate about over the years up here in the background, just because I thought they were neat. The first here is Tiny Kurt. This is Kurt Vonnegut, who's my very favorite novelist, and over the course of the pandemic, I joined an online over Zoom book club where I've got to discuss many of his novels with other enthusiasts. A little Tom Servo that I got from the Mystery Science Theater Kickstarter a few years ago. We've got a character from the classic Nintendo Entertainment System video game Punch-Out! And back here we've got Luna Lovegood from the Harry Potter universe. She's my kind of weird. Well, here's a great 3-for-1. My wife, who I'm passionate about, painted Hawaiian flowers on my tuba mouthpiece. So it's great living here, it's great making music here, and I really value the chance to get to make music with Chamber Music Hawaii and the Honolulu Brass. Thanks, Jamie. Bye. Have a good one.
Thank you, TJ. Thanks for being here. Thank you, viewers, for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye.